Hey there, welcome back to another review, this time of the 1980 horror film Anthropophagus, The Grim Reaper. Now, this is a DVD I got a long time ago from Shriek Show, and I got it mainly because, well, I heard about this film, and I knew this is a pretty hard to find title, and it was at a pretty affordable price. And so yeah, this is the next film on the list, and the movie itself is pretty banal. It's pretty banal and pretty dopey and really not my cup of tea. I would not say it's one of the worst films I've ever seen, but it's definitely not one of the best. And but I was okay with that because the set itself was definitely worth it. There's some great special features on this. Good documentary on the second disc on Joe D'Amato called Totally Uncut 2 that goes throughout his entire filmography with interviews with him and with other people who worked with him, and a little interview, a public appearance Q&A with Zora Kerova and George Eastman, as well as a photo gallery, alternate U.S. openings for the film, trailers, and there's a lot of trailers on this. And this is the uncut version of the film, which there's another U.S. release of this movie where it's just titled The Grim Reaper, which is not uncut. It didn't make that much of a difference, which I was really surprised. This was one of the notorious video nasty films that was banned in the UK and for its extreme violence. And seeing the uncut version was kind of a letdown because it's not really that violent. I mean, yes, there's that infamous fetus eating sequence, which isn't really a fetus. It doesn't even look like a fetus. It's what it was just a dead rabbit that was shaped to look like a fetus, but it didn't really look like a fetus. And besides, the scene was so short, he rips the fetus out, the fetus, and noms on it, and it's like really short. It's a very short sequence. Same thing goes for any of the sequences where he eats guts. Um, and the other stuff that other bits of gore, like where he bites a guy's neck, or when a girl gets her throat slit, and there's a severed head that looks like like it's made out of paper mache, found in a bucket. I mean, yeah, and even in the beginning, there's blood underwater, and there's a guy who gets a cleaver in his head. It's kind of tame. It's disappointing in that regard because you hear about, oh, it's shocking, and even the back of the DVD is like one of the most notorious, most debated, most banned films of the video nasty era. Anthropophagus has never been available in the United States with all its gruesome scenes intact until now. From legendary Euro sleaze king Joe D'Amato, Anthropophagus boasts a memorably disturbing performance by co-writer George Eastman. And see for yourself what all the fuss is about. Have you got the guts? Yeah, I definitely do. Because this movie has plenty of guts, as you can see in the cover. But it's not really one of the goriest films I've ever seen. It's and it's not even one of the goriest Italian horror films I've seen. So in that regard, it's a letdown. But the film was directed by Joe D'Amato, which is a pseudonym for a director named Aristide Mazzatini. Now, I don't think I said his last name correctly, but this is a name. He instead of using his name, he decided to use Joe D'Amato, and he's pretty much well known in a lot of circles around, the U.S. and so forth as Joe D'Amato. Yes, this is the same director who did Porno Holocaust and Erotic Nights of the Living Dead. This is definitely one of the better films that I've seen that Joe D'Amato's directed. Before this, he did a film called Beyond the Darkness, and he also did another horror film called Death Smiles at Murder, I believe. And that one was his first horror film, and I saw a trailer for it on the second disc, which is another reason why this set is good. Reason why I'm glad I got this. I'm gonna keep this DVD, not only because it's out of print, but because it had some good trailers. There was a little bonus Easter egg, where you could click on a face that pops up on the menu screen, and it shows trailers for Joe D'Amato's other films, like Death, Smiles, and Murder, which I believe that's what it's called. I could be completely wrong. But anyway, I liked that trailer. It was a very stylish film, and it seems like a movie that definitely probably is the best showcase of his actual directorial talents. For the most part, I thought the direction in this was pretty solid. I didn't think the direction was really a problem. I felt the writing, which was by George Eastman, who also plays the Anthropophagus himself, because Anthropophagus is the act, it's a flesh eater. That's another word for a cannibal, is Anthropophagus. So I thought he did a good job playing the character, who, although to me personally, he looks like zombie Macho Man Randy Savage. So I was creeped out by it, but mainly because, it was like, holy shit, what if Randy Savage was a zombie and he's like gonna eat your guts? Like, I thought that was actually pretty terrifying. I thought Macho Man could be pretty intimidating, so having him be a zombie was pretty, he's not really a zombie, he's a cannibal. It was pretty intimidating too. I could just imagine that, ooh yeah, snap into some guts, snapping into your intestines like a Slim Jim. Ooh yeah. Uh, I'm not doing the best impression because I'm getting over a cold, which that's the main reason why I haven't really posted anything new for a while, is because of this stupid cold. So forgive me. But I wanted to do this review before I forgot about the movie. Because for the most part, it's not very memorable. The only things that are really memorable for me is this shot right here where this blind girl who's been hiding in a wine, I think it's a wine, a barrel of wine. She pops out with a knife. That was somewhat memorable to me. And any scene with the Anthropophagus, any scene with the Grim Reaper himself, Eastman. And I thought his performance was pretty good. It was a pretty intimidating character. And I thought the backstory for this character was pretty interesting. It was a father who was stranded with his wife and his son in the middle of the ocean. And he basically goes crazy. And he kills his wife and eats her and then eats his kid. Now, you don't actually see him eat his kid, but his wife tries to stop him from eating their son, and he stabs her and then starts eating her guts. Now, it's not really explained why he looks like this, because he looked fairly normal before, even, after he started eating her guts. So I don't really know what the explanation is for why he looks like a zombie. But, it's still an interesting backstory that actually it's very tragic. And honestly, it's kind of wasted by this film because it's kind of an afterthought. You don't see this flashback until over an hour into the movie, and it just, yeah, it's kind of it's a waste of a really intense, memorable plot line. That stuck with me. Just the concept of it sticks with me. It's very shocking and haunting. Now, the movie is also written by Joe D'Amato and George Eastman, who also helped write the film. And he mainly helped write it because he wanted to also be the star. He wanted to be the lead. And so he was already acquaintances with Joe D'Amato, so they were able to work that out. So you have George Eastman, which is also a pseudonym for another Italian actor, and Tisa Farrow, who is Mia Farrow's sister, who was also in Lucio Fulci's Zombie, I believe. She was in the Lucio Fulci films. And you also have Zora Kerova, who was interviewed when she showed up at a public appearance, and you see the interview on this on the second disc, on disc 2 of this set by Shriek Show. So, and she was talking about how she was very, very seasick throughout most of the production. And so much so, the fact that she was just throwing up all the time, and her co-workers, or her, fellow actors, were trying to make her feel better by doing stuff like saying, "Oh, don't worry about it. Once you throw up, you'll feel better." Yeah, so it's like once you vomit, you'll feel better. I don't know. I don't know. I think I'll feel worse or just as bad. I don't know if that's really gonna help. But she's this psychic character who's this psychic lady. And yeah, so you have Tisa Farrow plays Julie, who's pretty much the main lead of the film. And I actually thought she did a good job. I thought she was actually the best actress out of the entire movie. Um, Saverio Vallone plays Andy. Serena Grandi plays Maggie, who's she's a pregnant lady who pretty much is dead weight for most of the movie, but she was just in the film because the producer was like, "You need to have this chick in here because she's gonna be a star," and that never really happened. Margaret Mazzatini as Henriette. Mark Bodin plays Daniel. Bob Larson plays Arnold. Rubina Rey plays Ruth Wortman. And George Eastman plays Klaus Wortman, who I guess is the real name of the Anthropophagus himself. And you have Zora Kerova plays Carol, who is a psychic. So the film also features music by Marcello Giambini, which this score grew on me. At first, I'm like, this is stupid. The part of it is stupid. Part of it sounds like silly carnival music. It doesn't really fit the movie. But as it goes along, the score gets better, and it really adds to the mood and the atmosphere of the film. The film definitely does have its fair share of creepy, eerie moments. When Tisa Farrow finds the hidden room behind a mirror, and it's all shrouded in darkness, and all you see is these white sheets covering everything, and she basically uncovers one of the sheets and there's a corpse. Um, the location of the mansion that I guess they were shooting at, especially when it was at night, was effectively eerie. And the sequences in the crypt where the Grim Reaper Klaus found his home and were very eerie as well. And that's because it was a real crypt. It was a real catacomb. It was a catacomb. It was catacombs with real bones and real skeletons. But I guess the director Joe D'Amato didn't think it was creepy enough. So what he did was like he rented some fake skulls and some fake bones, plastic skulls and bones, and littered them everywhere to make it even more macabre. And to be honest, that really kind of cheapened the whole look. Because every time I saw a sequence with the crypt, with the catacombs, it would pan, and then I'd see a fake skull. And it just kind of, it was unnecessary. He thought there needed to be more bones. And I'm like, it's a catacomb. And just the fact that there are real bones in here, real, corpses, pretty much, I don't really think we need fake plastic bones. But I guess he thought it was needed. And what's funny about that is that after the sequences in the crypt and the catacombs were done shooting, he had some of his crew members go over and get all the bones. Well, I guess maybe he didn't specify just get the plastic bones, or he did, but the crew wasn't really thinking. So they took all the bones, the plastic bones, and the bones of the Christians who were buried there. And so he takes these bones back to the rental place, and they send back a bag of real bones to Joe D'Amato because they're like, we're not taking this to the crypt. We're not taking this to the catacombs. You need to do this. And I guess Joe D'Amato kept him in his house. Which I'm just like, that's kind of fucked up. Like, it's like desecrating a fucking grave site. Can you just at least take the bones back to the catacombs where you found them? I mean, it's not too much to ask. But anyway, so yeah, those sequences were effectively eerie, and the after the Grim Reaper himself shows up, which takes a long ass time for some reason, like 50 minutes into the movie, which is only about 90 minutes long, and he shows up, and when you first see him, it's actually a pretty well shot nightmarish sequence. You know, he's got these wild, crazy eyes, and you know, zombie Macho Man Randy Savage, and he snaps into some guy's neck like a Slim Jim. And then you're like, what? Shit. And then he disappears. And, but once the Grim Reaper is established and he actually is here, there's actual suspense in the film, especially near the end where it's a showdown with Tisa Farrow and zombie Macho Man Randy Savage, the Anthropophagus. And what I really liked about this little bit of a showdown, of course, the sequence where it was somebody, I don't think she was related to her, but it was somebody that she was babysitting and knew personally, this blind lady. She gets her head ripped through these boards and her face gets ripped off, and it's pretty sad. I mean, the effect is pretty good, but I'm just saying, like, it's just pretty brutal. She's screaming and she gets her face ripped off, and then she basically gets her throat uh, bit by the Anthropophagus. And then Tisa Farrow's going on one-on-one with Anthropophagus, and she hits him in the leg with a pickaxe, and then he shows up again, and she basically gets tied, one hand tied with a rope that the Anthropophagus has because he set up some sort of trap for her. And she gets her up. She got one arm tied, one hand tied, and the Anthropophagus is down in this little, I don't know what it is. Like there's a ladder and there's water down there, and so the Anthropophagus is there in the water, and she's hanging by this freaking rope, and she's trying to climb up and get away from the Anthropophagus. That was actually a pretty suspenseful sequence. It was actually pretty well done. So the film did have its moments. That's why I can't say it's one of the worst films I've ever seen, because I think it did have its moments. And then with the climax, we're pretty much our hero or the male lead shows up out of nowhere and stabs the Anthropophagus in the stomach with a pickaxe, and he eats his own guts and then dies. That was a striking image because, for one, you don't see that very often. Just like you don't really see very often where somebody is tied with one hand to a rope either. But the whole, your villain basically eating himself to death, which I think, I thought that was actually a pretty, nice image for a horror film. I mean, not really a nice image. No, it's a beautiful image. It's such a beautiful image, eating his own guts. But it was definitely something that's stuck with me and stuck with a lot of people. I mean, look at that. He's lost all control. This is what used to be a human, and now he's so wild and so primal that he sees guts and doesn't matter that they're his own. He just eats them out of instinct. So those are the things about Anthropophagus that I liked. Little bits of the gore, some of the atmosphere, bits of the score, performance by Tisa Farrow, like George Eastman's performance as the cannibal, and the direction by Joe D'Amato was actually pretty solid for the most part. But the film has other flaws that really hurt it. It's pretty boring for the most part. The first 20 minutes especially, first 20 minutes or so are very, very dull. Even in the beginning, you have the weird, silly carnival music in the opening credits, It cuts to this couple who's, I guess, German, but there's no subtitles, so I don't know what the fuck they're saying. And his girlfriend gets killed by the cannibal, I guess because he can breathe underwater. I don't this it's not really, it's like Joe D'Amato wanted to do rip off Jaws, and then for some reason for this, it doesn't make much sense. This girl gets killed underwater, and there's a nice shot of blood underwater, but it just doesn't make much sense when it's supposed to be just a normal guy who basically went insane and became a cannibal uh, out of survival, and then it drove him nuts. But here he's, I guess, able to breathe underwater like he's a creature from the Black Lagoon and fucking kill some chick. I don't, it doesn't make any sense. And then her boyfriend's listening to some shitty music on his headphones, and he gets killed with a butcher knife, with a meat cleaver. And then we cut to, I guess, I don't know, to a completely different location near Greece, where where a lot of this film is shot. And you introduce Tisa Farrow's character, who meets up with this group of people who are planning on going there on a sailboat. They're going to sail, to a certain location, and I guess they're going to sail close to where Tisa Farrow wants to go, which is this island where the cannibal also happens to be, but of course they don't know that. And I do have to admit, like, there was one sequence here that did get me because it was pretty unintentionally hilarious. And I think, honestly, I think it might have been intentionally hilarious. Because I can't believe they wrote that the screenwriters could have wrote this particular sequence and meant it to be taken seriously. So what you have is the group of people, they're contemplating whether or not they should let Tisa Farrow join them and stop off at the destination where she wants to go. And like, well, how about it, guys? What do you think? Should we let her come along with us? And and the other people's like, yeah, a girl like her, yeah, totally, yeah. And they was like, yeah, no problem, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. And then this one random guy, he's just like, hell yeah. I cracked up. I couldn't help but crack up at that. Dude, how could you not? It's just so random. Everyone else reacts normally, and this one guy is like a total perv. He's like, hell yeah, because I'm gonna get in the pants later. I'm gonna snap into her panties like a Slim Jim. Anyway, I thought that was pretty funny. But there isn't very many moments like that. There's that moment, and then it's just pure boredom. Excuse me, sorry. Once again, still trying to get over this cold. So, it's just pure boredom. It's definitely dull. And they then get on the sailboat. We see a scene of somebody getting seasick. Like, I really needed to see that. You establish that Zora Kerova's character is a psychic, and her boyfriend or her brother is like, thinks she's crazy and even says she's insane. Um, Of course, she's doing the tarot cards and sees that there's something bad that's going to happen, but nobody believes her. They end up on the island, and they see some lady who's just randomly there staring at a window, staring out a window, and they go in to check it out, and they see in the window the words on the window, which are written like in the I don't know how they wrote them on the window, but there's words on the window that say "go away." And when I first started trying to watch this, that's the moment I shut the film off because I was so bored that I was about ready to fall right asleep, like into a deep sleep. I couldn't keep my eyes open. My eyes were heavy. And when the film basically told me to go away, I was like, all right, fine. I'll do it. I'll go away. All right, I'm going away. So I stopped the movie. I went to bed. And then it was a couple days later that I finally finished it. And I can see why. I can see why anybody would be bored with this movie because The first 20 minutes after the first kill, which happens early on in the film, the first kills, you have nothing that happens for the most part. You see a shitty looking severed head in a bucket. You get it's trying to build suspense and atmosphere, but the characters suck, so it doesn't help. I don't care about anybody except for Tisa Farrow. And so I don't know what it's trying to do, why it took so long for the Grim Reaper to finally show up and bite somebody's neck. But once that does happen, the film does kind of start to pick up a little bit. But by then, it's already too late because your movie's almost already over. So that's the biggest problem for me, is how deathly dull it is for the most part when there isn't the cannibal running around eating people. There's even a scene where a woman hangs herself, but the scene is so, I don't know if it's how it was written, but the reactions to this hanging is very nonchalant. It's, I guess the blind woman is the one who's freaked out the most, but she can't see anything, so I don't know why she would be the one that's screaming. Tisa Farrow reacts very, doesn't really bother her that much, and the guys, when they see a woman hang herself randomly out of nowhere, blood pouring out of her mouth, they're just like, they don't have any reaction. They just stand there like nothing happened. And then they grab it, and then they say, "Hey, Marty, go get that knife and cut her down." It's like there's too calm, like way too calm for this situation. And for the most part, there's just, like I said, it's really boring because there's a really long swath of moments in the film where nothing pretty much happens. And so it's really easy to be bored and really easy for you to lose interest in the film, which is too bad because I kind of like the concept and I like the location. But that's mainly the biggest problem the film has, is, the fact that it's pretty boring for the most part, slow paced, loses you as a viewer. And then there's also a few, some of the performances by some of the supporting cast not very good, and the writing could be a bit better. But yeah, but I'm not alone when it comes to not being a fan of this film, because George Eastman himself, in an interview that's on this DVD, he said the same thing. He said exactly what I said in the beginning. He said he thought the film was pretty banal, and he didn't like it. He wasn't a fan of the film. And a little fun fact was that the film got a very limited theatrical release in Italy, and he was one of the 3 people who were in the theater. So it was him and a couple. And when it got to the scene with the fetus, where the Anthropophagus rips out the fetus and eats it, the couple left. They were disgusted. And George Eastman was the only one left in the theater watching the movie. And he was like, that's the moment he knew this movie was not going to be a hit. Well, it wasn't a hit in Italy, but it became a bigger hit overseas in other countries and so forth and so on. But yeah, so I'm not alone. I mean, the Anthropophagus himself thinks the movie sucked. But hey, it does have a fan base, and that's cool. To each their own. I wish I liked this. I just don't. It's not my cup of tea. But it's not a rant because it's not a film that I hated. I didn't hate this movie. There were things about it that worked, but it just took a long ass time for those things to appear. Um, and what I mean by the film being dopey, it's not like, oh, like Dopey the dwarf. What I mean by dopey, there's a line of dialogue where this one woman is like, oh, I feel a little bit dopey, and because she's been taking drugs, and that's how I feel about this movie. It's a dopey movie because it makes you feel like you're doped up on drugs, like the type of drugs that make you drowsy and groggy and tired. Because that's why the film is dopey, because it dopes you up in not the good way. But I really don't know what else to say about Anthropophagus, except if it was a rate out of 5 stars, I give it 2 out of 5. Like I said, there were some things about it that worked, not a lot, but there was enough that made it better than something like Alien 2 or The Alien Dead. So it was ultimately a below average film, but there were some things about it that were worth it. And I definitely did like the special features on this DVD, so it wasn't a total loss. So, but anyway, thank you for watching my review of Anthropophagus, and I will see you guys later. See ya.